but the cost that you're going to have to pay him on top of the draft assets, two first round picks for a wide receiver. We talked about with Shane, he said organizations are generally not dumb. Well, yeah, some of them are.
McMullen and McDonald, your Mac Birds 365 guys here on the JAKIB Media YouTube channel. Do us a favor, hit that like button. We appreciate it. Need to improve our algorithm, or so I'm told. Any help you can give us, we would appreciate greatly. We thank Shane Allen for hopping on and helping us out with his draft opinion. Coming up, just over 20 minutes from now, Timmy Mack, a triple Mack attack coming your way. McMullen, McDonald, McManus, Tim McManus from ESPN, their Eagle reporter, will jump aboard with us. T-Mac, I wanted to ask you about...
You jumping the gun. You said T-Mac. I'm J-Mac.
Did I call you T-Mac?
No, bad. That's bad for Tim.
Right.
So I just want to clarify that.
You got a pair of J-Macs here right now. I did see some Deebo Samuel stories over the last 24 hours. Supposedly, San Francisco said they just don't foresee themselves trading a guy like Deebo Samuel. He's too good, too important to their franchise. Yet someone was able to come up with a piece of information that if the 49ers were to trade him, the asking price would start at 2 first-round draft picks and maybe expand from there. It's funny how that works. How can they not be trading him, but yet you can get a guesstimation on how much it would cost if they trade him? Is there smoke here? Is there fire here? We've got how many hours did you get off Shane's site there? 2 days,
no,
10 hours?
I still have it up. 2 days, 10 hours, 59 minutes, and 24 seconds. So, and by the way, you could still spend 4 plus 5 hours with us of that time. So,
true.
Between now and the draft. So we got you covered, but I mean, that's a heavy price. Obviously, it does no good to say we have to trade Deebo Samuel. So you understand from the fact that they're not going to say, hey, we're open for business. We're going to trade him. But remember, I mean, the back end of this is you got to pay the guy 20 some odd $million plus to play to get an extension. Along with those 2 first rounds. So, that's quarterback territory. They're not getting 2 first round picks for Deebo Samuel. I look at the Tyreek Hill trade. He's a little bit younger. I think he's I can't even say he's even more unique than Tyreek Hill is how I'll describe it. But I don't think he's a guy you just line up at receiver, and then there's talk of he wants to line up at receiver. How much does he want to touch the ball? How much are you going to utilize him correctly? There's a lot of other things that come into a Deebo Samuel evaluation than just the typical receiver that you're going to line up outside, like Devontae Adams or somebody of that nature. But the cost that you're going to have to pay him on top of the draft assets, 2 first round picks for a wide receiver. We talked about with Shane, he said organizations are generally not dumb. Well, yeah, some of them are. Maybe somebody will do that, but I don't think there's a lot of teams lining up to do that. I look at Hill, your team, Jody. Sorry. I'll bring this up. The Jets agreed to a trade for Tyreek Hill. And I think it was, you probably know better than me, it was the 2 second round picks. They have 2 at the top of the second round as well, I believe. And it was 2 picks in the 30s that, Kansas City was willing to accept. And part of that was because they knew they'd have to pay the guy on top of it. So 2 first round picks, I don't. You can probably get 1.
What did the Dolphins end up giving up for Hill? What was the deal?
They got a first round pick, and I'd have to look it up, but 1 first round pick, and they got something else on top of it. I'll look it up real quick. But the Jets were offering 2 early second-round picks, and the
Right, because
Chiefs were
they weren't giving up this year's picks because one was 4 and one was 10. So I didn't believe that they're willing to part with either of those picks, and I don't think they're willing to part with either of those picks now for Deebo Samuel.
yeah. So the Chiefs traded Hill. They got a 22 first-round pick, 2022 second-round pick, 2 fourth-round picks, and a 6th-round pick. 2023
So a
6th-round pick.
first, a second, 2 fourths, and a sixth.
Yeah. So, and when you get to, I mean, people will pile on. I'm not as concerned with the day 3 picks. So they offered a first and a second. Could they get a first and a second and then some day 3 picks for Samuel? Yeah, I think they could get that.
And that's certainly less than 2 firsts, but not the drop off of that. If you're talking about a second round pick, if that first round pick, that second first round pick is going to be in a future year, well, you're getting a future second round pick, so you only have to make up the difference. How many extra day 3 picks do you have to add to it? They added a couple, so
And there's not.
I would say the San Francisco asking price is not outrageous. It's high, and I don't think they're going to get it, but it's like, yeah, why just don't you announce to the world you're not trading them? Because no one on the face of the planet would even consider doing that. It's not that outrageous, John.
No, I suppose. I mean, they have to be late first round picks. And that's the thing. I mean, people get too caught up. But that was the thing with the Jets offer. 2 early second round picks are not that much different from 2 late first round picks. It's just the stigma, if you want to call it stigma, if you want to call it microscope, if you're picked 31, Jody, or 32, obviously, but 31 for argument's sake, you're always a first round pick. You always have that on your resume. You always have that on, he's a first round pick. He's a first round pick. Whereas you're picked 34th, nobody cares. Nobody, you're that. I mean, it's just a label that's not that meaningful, but it becomes meaningful, and it becomes meaningful for organizations as well. We want a first round pick. We gotta have a first round pick. When, all right, what if I'm giving you 33 instead of 32? I mean, it doesn't, and in some ways it could help you because you don't have that 50-year option, which doesn't spike up to a ludicrous degree, especially if it's not at a valuable position. Howie Roseman talked about this with me a couple of years ago with the value of the 32nd pick. And the traditional way of thinking is, well, you want to go up to that spot to get the 50-year option, which is correct, but only for certain positions. And quarterback being most notably, which everybody tries to do. Like the last thing you want to do is have a running back with a 50-year option or a center with a 50. Garrett Bradbury, the news came out, guy I always talk about because that's why I'm concerned with Tyler Linderbaum. He was a higher ranked prospect coming into the draft whenever he was picked in 2018 than Linderbaum is now. And he's just so small and he gets pushed back. And here we are 4 years later. They don't pick up his option because it spikes to $13 million in the 5th year. He's a center, Jody, and it still spikes. You just saw it with Derek Barnett here as a 2017 pick, spiking all the way up to over $10 million. And the Eagles paid it amazingly. That 5th year is an albatross unless it's at, the quarterback position, basically. I mean,
can go either way is I think the point you're trying to make, and I agree with you. That's what you're saying. It's not a given that it's a plus.
Yeah,
it can actually be a minus. It can go either way, depending on the level of the talent that the player shows in the first 4 years. And you're right. It's a little predictive as to the position. There are certain positions that if you're good enough, you don't even blink about picking up that 5th position. Other positions, you took them in that round that year and go, yeah, but he's a running back. It's just too big a spike right away. You're right. It depends on what position the guy plays. but it's always most dependent on, well, how good was he? You just
Well,
mentioned
yeah, if
Derek
he's a
Barnett.
good player, you
To
don't
me,
care.
Derek Barnett wasn't good enough to merit a 5th-round option pickup. I don't care what position he was at.
And
I
the
don't
same
care
thing, and the
where they
same
took him
thing,
and what it climbed to. He wasn't that good.
and the same thing with Bradbury. You're right. Nobody cares if the player's good, but the odds of you getting a good player at 32 is a heck of a lot less than 4 or 10.
True.
And the odds of you getting a good player at 33 are basically the same odds of you getting a good player at 32. But one's a second round pick and one's a first round pick. So,
But that one less year does, you have to do quicker evaluating. It's, if you can't figure it out in 4 years, I'm not saying like, oh my God, that's putting a rush on it. It's not the case, but you do have one less year to evaluate. J Mac, one guy who said a little talking about the offensive line size. An Eagle offensive lineman decided to stay in the fold yesterday. We all expected it to come. They had tendered Herbig a restricted free agent contract this offseason, and he did sign off on it. So he is going to be able to get some work in this week with the Eagles. I asked you this before the show started. Are the Eagles going to make any players available? They haven't said no yet, but they haven't said yes yet either. And you don't think there's any chance, despite the fact that they are going to get together as a team while others are doing different work in the NovaCare complex. The Eagles are actually going to get some team building activities in, but not make them available to you guys.
Yeah, they put some pictures up on the Eagles Twitter of them running around. Now I think, they're leaning on it's draft week, and by the way, we're all busy, so it's probably better for us, but we're working hard, and they'll give us the players after the draft, but it is what it is. I mean, they came in a week late. If I'm going to be a conspiracy theorist, if I'm going to be Oliver Stone, I'd say they did it on purpose, but I don't think it's that meaningful.
When you say they did it on purpose, to coincide with draft week so that they didn't have to make players available?
I said if I was Oliver Stone, I might come to that conclusion. If you're a conspiracy theorist, I don't think it was the number one reason, but it didn't hurt. It was factored into the mix. Is how I'll describe it.
The number one reason was because they think they're ahead of the curve when it comes to protecting their players versus injury risks, even though Howie kind of left that at the coach's doorstep last week. Neither you nor I believed that
Nick's
was
like,
a coach's decision.
I got it's funny if he did said I got nothing to do with it. It would have been funny if he said that, but yeah, it was kind of he brushed it off to Nick, who probably is the least one worthy of answering the question. But as I always say, I've yet to meet the football coach that doesn't want to practice. It worked out for him last year, so it's understandable. They're looking at that and saying, "Well, it worked pretty well last year, so let's just keep it status quo." I've said it for years. These things aren't meaningful at all for veteran players. So the rookies aren't even here yet. They haven't drafted them. There's no undrafted. I think it's important for those guys. So they're not even here yet. So yeah, it probably doesn't matter at the end of the day.
See if you can guess along with me if they had decided to do things differently. No chance. And they allowed you guys in, take a break from your draft stuff. Well, as they usually do, let you watch about 8 minutes of practice. But if that had been the case, who would have been the guy I would have told you, Johnny Mack, you got to zero in this guy and give me a report on him tomorrow? What do you think that guy would have been?
I mean, the first phase, you can't even do anything really. So there's not even any real football activity. So it would be just watching guys run around and things like that. Of the veteran players, I probably the most interesting now is JJ because he's changing positions. When they ultimately line up in a football way, maybe he's somebody to keep an eye on. But yeah, I mean, basically just be guys running and stretching and getting conditioning work in. So, there's not much you can glean from that. The more you could glean is from actually talking to them. Be nice to talk to JJ Arcega-Whiteside about his move to tight end, who precipitated it, who brought it up first, things like that. But we'll get there eventually. It's April, whatever. Where are we, Jody?
Today is the 27th.
26th, I got April 26th.
26th, Tuesday, 26th, right. First day of the draft is Thursday the 28th. Now, here's a guy I want you to give me the lowdown on. Even though, as you say, you can't really judge anything. How's Zach Pascal looking? Because as of right now, before the draft, he's wide receiver 3 for the Eagles, if not wide receiver 2. I don't want to do that to the Eagles' second wide receiver, but again, I think he's a stretch. In a perfect case scenario, you would be dropping Watkins back to 3 so you could slot in somebody at 2. Zach Pascal, that guy, could he flash for you, Johnny Mack, at an Eagle workout to make you say,
I don't think he's the type of guy that's going to flash in t-shirts and shorts. He's a big physical receiver. He's going to block well, Jody. He's going to set up those bubble screens. The off season as well, when the Donnell Pumphreys of the world flash and they look, wow, he looks good. And then he puts on the pads and it's all over.
Oops.
Yeah. So it's generally the really fast, quick, twitchy, athletic guys that stand out, as you would imagine, in t-shirts and shorts. And that's probably not going to be Zach Pascal. Jalen Reagor will probably look good.
And this week is voluntary, correct, Johnny Mack?
Yeah, everything's voluntary. The Eagles have no mandatory work. Everything's voluntary.
So since they're not letting you guys in to watch, you're not getting access to any of these players. How do you know who is or isn't there?
We don't. Generally, the Eagles will come out and say we have 95%. And there are certain guys like Darius, veterans, Darius Slay, Fletcher, Brandon Graham. They'll be in for a couple days, then they'll have to go home to do something, and they'll be excused. But generally, they'll have close to 100% participation, and by that I mean nearly 100% of the players will be there for a portion of the off-season program. So yeah, but unless we're going to sit at the gate of the NovaCare complex and check off a list, and remember, guys have tinted windows, so that's really difficult. Yeah, we don't know, but the Eagles will let us in on their 99% participation rate.
And some of these guys tip their hand on their social media accounts, which makes it easier for you or I. Did Jalen Hurts?
Yeah, he's there. He's there.
He's there. Okay.
Of course,
not working out with AJ Brown this week, huh?
No. Well, he was earlier in the week, but he's here. No, I guess it was Monday. I guess that was over the weekend, whenever that happened. But he was working out with AJ Brown, but he's here. He and Devontae Smith were pictured running together on the NovaCare Complex field, courtesy of the Eagles Twitter.
Well, the Eagles put that.
You better be here if you're the quarterback. I mean, that's you. When the quarterback doesn't show up, this happened with Sam Bradford back when the Eagles drafted Carson Wentz. That was a big deal at the time, and that was Doug Peterson's sort of first issue as a head coach, and I thought he handled it pretty well. And that was the point where I said, this guy's got a chance to be a decent head coach, because I thought he handled that pretty deftly. But when your starting quarterback doesn't show up for voluntary work, even, that's a big deal in the NFL, because it's kind of an unwritten rule. If you're the quarterback, voluntary or not, you gotta be there.
You mean like Kyler Murray this week in Arizona has chosen not to show up?
It's a big deal.
Yeah, it is.
When a quarterback doesn't show up, it's a big deal.
And the Cardinals say it's not an issue, that they'll get something done. They're not worried about doing it now, but they will negotiate with him before next season starts, and they've already picked, or I think they said they were going to pick up the 5th-year option on Murray's contract, which is going to be up in the $26-27 million range. They haven't officially done it yet. I think they have to do it by
May 1st, I think.
Is it the
May
1st?
1st or 2nd?
Okay, it's the formality. They're going to get it done, but they haven't done it yet. Maybe they should have done it already, because I don't think Kyler Murray was coming in anyway.
No,
but
he's
at
not
least
coming in. He's not coming in without an extension. That's the key to Kyler Murray. But yeah, I mean, he can either play with the Cardinals or not play if they want to play hardball. So, unless he wants to go back to baseball, good luck, Kyler.
Yeah, that'd be a little tough to make the kind of money that he's making as a quarterback, even if it's just on a 5th-year option in the National Football League, if he's trying to jump back into baseball. Which, by the way, do you remember what team owns his rights in baseball?
Is it the Oakland Athletics?
The Oakland A's, who took their entire team apart because they didn't want to pay him this offseason. Yeah, Kyler, you'll be going back to Oakland making money. Right.
Yeah, and he'll be playing in front of 2,700 fans. Ooh, those crowds have been ugly.
And somehow the A's are 8-8, or they're right at 5.
They're always 8-8. Billy Bean, baby, Moneyball.
Billy Bean doesn't really have I think
He doesn't.
I think he's still
involved.
Isn't
he a part owner now?
He's not making any decisions.
No, but isn't he a part owner? At least a small minority owner now
for the A's. Did they give him a percentage at one point?
I think they did.
Okay, I don't know about that, but he's not pulling his.
I got to look that up in the break. But there's Tim McManus in the green room. Mac and Mac and Mac. I'm excited.
It's a triple Mac attack coming your way next. McMullen, McDonald, and Tim McManus of ESPN is going to jump aboard Birds 365.